Hello everybody, and a very warm welcome to today's Marketing Society Global Conversation. My name's Sophie Devonshire and I'm the Chief Executive of the Marketing Society. And I'm so pleased to be here today welcoming you to this global conversation. This is part 7 in our series of global conversations. We started the series back in April last year. A very, very different world then. We started it as the first lockdown hit the UK, and what a year it's been. And across those months, we've had some really great feedback from some of our members about how much they are enjoying these global conversations, which bring in different perspectives and different stories from different marketing leaders right across the world. Our one last month was on upskilling. This month, we're talking about something quite important and a large subject. Today, we are talking about revolution. Our subject is New Year's revolutions. Now, we're nearly at the end of January, so I suspect that those of you who had some New Year's resolutions might be just reflecting on the fact that a few of them may have already fallen by the wayside. Statistically speaking, that's likely. Those of you who intended to have a dry January, I know that that has been a challenge for lots of people with everything that's happening in the UK specifically. But today is not just about our resolutions and things that we want to get better. It's about change. It's about revolution and the revolutions that are happening in marketing at the moment, in business and the world. We would like to talk today about some of the changes that we would like to see happening or the transformations that we are already seeing happening around us in marketing, business, and in the world as a whole. At the Marketing Society, our 2021 theme has centered around encouraging marketers to be change makers. We're calling on everyone. We're calling on you to be the change you want to see. And we know that marketers have always been the ones that make the change happen, and that's needed now more than ever. So we're talking today, as we get a little way into this new year, about what kind of revolutions we all want to see. I don't know about you though, I feel a little bit like January has not been a new year, but rather month 13 of 2020. Perhaps we make this about Chinese New Year instead, which Wendy, our Marketing Society chair in Singapore, who's joining us today, will probably appreciate. And before we get started, it's important to say that everything we do within the Marketing Society is designed to help you as members to come together to do well in your careers and do good in your businesses in the world. So please, as you're listening at home, whatever you're doing, we'd love to invite you to join in as much as you can. There is the chat function on Zoom, and it would be great if you could use it. We love a bit of interactivity. I know our members tend to be very articulate and very vocal. So please feel free to use that chat function all the way throughout. Just share your thoughts and opinions as we go. And there's also the Q&A facility, so you can ask questions of our brilliant panelists today. We'd really love to encourage you to do that. So let's get started. We've got a little bit already of some of you coming to say hello on chat. It'd be great to hear from you, as I know we've got people from all kinds of different places. Come and say hello and tell us where you're dialing in from. And if you're ready for it and awake enough in whatever time zone you're in, tell us in one word, what should we be changing or improving in marketing and business? What revolutions do you want to see? Come onto chat, get involved, and tell us where you are. I know there's lots of people joining, and it's great to see Anna from Spain. Welcome, Anna. A country with traditions of revolutions. And Pawan, great to see you. Ben, the change and the rise of empathy, the change you want to see or the change you see is happening. Hello, Michelle from Canada. Fantastic to see you from all different parts of the world. I think we're going to get some great perspectives from the audience today, as well as, of course, from our 4 brilliant revolutionary panelists who are going to be joining us. So I'd now like to introduce 4 different marketing leaders from 4 different parts of the world, 4 different industries, 4 different personalities. First of all, I've already mentioned the fantastic Wendy Walker, who is joining us from Singapore today. Hello, Wendy.
Hi there, Sophie.
So it's the end of the day with you today, so.
Yes.
Excellent. Been a long day?
Pretty long, about 13 hours so far. It's a busy time of year, but really excited to be here, and hello to everyone on the call all around the world.
Brilliant. And Wendy, can you tell us, you're dialing in from Singapore, and what do you do? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, look, I have the privilege of leading an amazing marketing team that covers marketing for Asia. And I'm also thrilled, of course, to be taking on the role of chair for the Marketing Society for our Singapore hub. I think, you know, Singapore, I have to say, the marketing landscape here really is one of the most innovative and dynamic, and there's such an ongoing opportunity for us to have a really positive impact on our community through the thought leadership and contribution we can make to our industry. So it's a fantastic place to be.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Wendy, and a very warm welcome. So now, moving back over to the UK, I'd like to introduce Tracey Gilbert. Hello, Tracey.
Hello, how are you?
We're good. So Tracey, tell us a little bit about you.
So I'm Tracey Gilbert, and I lead IBM iX and Enterprise Strategy for the UK and Ireland. And that is a team of just over 500 people, and our purpose is to keep human-centric design and humans really at the heart of how we help digital transformation happen in the UK. And one of the biggest audiences we serve are our marketing and marketeer audience.
Brilliant. Yes, and I can see from some of the comments coming through, Will has mentioned digital transformation watchouts as something in the revolutions. Just a reminder to everyone on chat, if you use the drop down to say all panelists and attendees, everybody can see your notes, because I think the panelists are seeing lots of great comments from London and New York and Hong Kong, but do keeping the comments going. Brilliant. Well, thank you, Tracey. I'm not going to ask you if you're feeling as positive as Wendy about things in the UK, but we'll come back to that. I would now like to move over to the Middle East and welcome Miten Chakraborty. Hello, Miten.
Hi, Sophie.
Oh, you said you were going to join with drama. You promised to do a dance.
But, you know, hello from Dubai, and hello to everybody who's, you know, joined in the call. So, you know, looking forward, excited as well.
Brilliant. And Miten, tell us a little bit about your role.
So, you know, again, very proud to be leading the marketing for a business called Baby Shop. We're part of the Landmark Group, one of the largest conglomerates in this region. We have businesses all around the Middle East, Africa, and Southeast Asia now. And as part of Baby Shop portfolio, we have about close to 230 stores, a thriving e-com business, and we are present in roughly 14 markets. So yeah, so lucky to be leading the marketing and the brand function for the business.
Brilliant, and through such interesting times as well. Thanks, Miten. And last but not least, I would like to welcome Angela Ceccarelli. Hello, Angela, who's here from New York. How
Hello.
Are you doing?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. Angela, tell us a little bit about your role.
Yeah, so I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for an early stage fintech startup in the crypto world. So we haven't launched yet, so it's exciting to come on and build a brand, that develop the culture, the mission, vision, everything. It's quite exciting to go from a rather large industry and financial services and business to a very small one that hopes to be bigger one day.
With all the
we will be.
Challenges.
Yes.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, as you can see, everybody, we've got some different industries, some businesses at different stages, some different parts of the world. What always unites people within the Marketing Society, and certainly what we believe, is that marketers can make a difference. Whatever role they have, wherever they come from, they have the potential to make change happen. So let's talk about this revolution that we've been alluding to, or what revolutions we want to see. I'd love to ask each of you a little bit about what you've been thinking about. What do you want to see in 2021 change? I mean, let's start with you, Angela. Your role has changed in the last few months. What do you want to see in your business, in marketing, or in the world? Tell us about your New Year's revolutions.
Yeah, thank you. So I did a lot of thinking on this, and it's been growing since the start of last year, right? And how things rapidly changed with the pandemic. So I think I want to say like 3 main points to get across and today, and it's around number one is listening. So we're, as marketers, we're really good at listening to the market, listening to our customers, but we also need to listen to our own people and internally. And I think we do that from a team perspective, but maybe not so much across the organization. I think at times we could be pretty siloed in what our thinking is. It's unique that I'm at a startup now. So, our team isn't huge, and I sit in a unique position where I also lead recruitment. So I'm talking to the front line, people who are looking for jobs, people who are exploring other opportunities, who are interested in this dynamic industry that I find myself in now, and then also those who come on board. And so really deep listening and understanding of what's happening in this world. How is that impacting not only our customers, but our employees? Because I think, number one motto I've always said is like people first, right? So like not just customer, but people. Our people. If you have the old saying, happy wife, happy life. That's the same in business. Like if you make your employees happy, then your customers will be happy. All that will come through. So I think that's really important. The other one is really just around challenging. Challenge the norm. I mean, the norm is gone, right? And we see that everything that's happening around us, and how does that impact? How does that impact our customers? How is that impacting our employees? How are we thinking about in 2021 and 2022, really what the new norm is going to be? I think from a talent perspective, it's anyone's game now. Anyone's game, because you can be anywhere. Legit. I mean, we just hired someone who was like working out Turks and Caicos for a while because she could.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, just she's now here, but she was just remote for a long time and finding like paradise where she could find paradise. So to me, I think that's having that flexibility for people to have like a work and life, and maybe enrich their life in a different way. And maybe that's not where you are. Maybe that's somewhere else. And then the other thing is just like be the change that you want, right? So like ensure that you're acting. And so if you look at building dynamic teams, diverse teams, when we see all the change, especially, I'm sitting, well, I was sitting in New York, now I'm sitting in Greenwich, but so it's a little deceiving on New York City. We're really close, but I sit on the New York board. The change that's happened in the States, it started off with the Me Too movement. It quickly progressed this past year into Black Lives Matter. You saw lots of brands leaning into that, showing diversity, and then other brands saying that they're being apolitical. And if one of our competitors came out and said, we're apolitical, we're not going to take any stance, and if you don't agree with us, you can leave. And that was employees' choice, and people did leave. So it was like a very bold, different, didn't seem to impact their growth and their user base, but it did impact their employees. So making those kind of bold things does have ramifications. And I think from a brand perspective, if you're aligning yourself, you got to look at your internal staff to make sure that you are having that diversity, that angle, that view that's not only public, that you're trying to show that your brand is for, but also your business is aligning to and understanding. And how does that impact having a diverse workforce, not only diverse, but decentralized too.
So many amazing things in there, Angela. I just want to reflect on some of the points you've made. And of course, you're dialing in from a country which, as you've said, has gone through a huge amount of change across socially across the last few years, and of course politically recently. So change is happening around us as well as the change we can shape. Some great points in there. The point about listening, I think, as marketers, we're all trained to believe in that and to do it. When we're so busy, when so much is going on, you know, finding ways to systematize that and to get better at it, I think is something we can all perhaps carry on and talk about. How do we do it as individuals, as leaders? How do we do it as businesses to make sure we are actually not just saying, yes, yes, we should listen, but making it part of it? I'd like to come back to that deep listening point. You also talked there, Angela, about, there's quite a lot in what you said about building brands and organizations from inside out. So getting the people right and people first. And I think that's definitely something we're hearing from a lot of marketers as well, the responsibility to not just think about the people we're marketing to, but the people that are working and creating the customer experience. And Tracey, I know you talked a little bit there about the human side of it all, and there's a few things coming through on chat about that as well. That huge change with people about the fact that we are, as Liesl said in the chat, everything's interconnected, future is global. That's one of the big transformations we've seen. And of course that has impact, as some people are saying on chat, about people being able to work from anywhere. Angela, you've just given us a great example. I'm definitely thinking, you know, that sounds quite appealing right now.
I missed that boat.
Great, but and last but not least, the challenges you've put in there, and that point of us working out how we can be the change inside our organizations, and do that while making sure we're walking the talk. It's not just outward communication, but, you know, we live in a transparent world now, and brands can't just put a sticking plaster that looks good on the side of it all. We've got to make sure it works internally. You know, big challenges in everything you've said there. Okay, lots of topics to come back to. All right. Let us now, please, if I can, just pick up on that human point and go back to Tracey, because I know you talked about people-centered digital transformation. Where are you on the revolutionary scale? Do you want to control more things and change more things? What would be your New Year's revolutions?
So it is absolutely about listening, but it's also about empathetic leadership, right? So I think when you combine those two, then you get, and you combine that then with digital transformation, you get digital transformation that really, really happens. I think, picking up on Angela's point, one of the key things that we've seen happen in the last year, it was starting to happen before, but really accelerated, is this idea of holistic listening, right? That we used to just talk about a user experience, and then we somehow thought that we had different kind of groups of humans. We had humans who were customers, and humans who were employees, and humans who were partners. And surprise, surprise, you know, we only have one set. Like, we are all of those things. And so this desire now to make sure that we listen to that complete voice is really there. So we see a lot of people really systemizing that and using tools to do it, things like Qualtrics and Medallia and all of those kinds of tools. But we also see people really leaning into design-led transformation, which means really thinking about the outcomes that you're trying to achieve. And I'm seeing that across all kinds of industries. We often saw in public sector people talk about things like the theory of change, when it was really about putting what outcomes you wanted for humans at the heart of it. But now I see bankers talking about stuff like that as well, and really trying to make sure that it is authentic change, it is good for people. And also, when you're changing in this level of uncertainty, you have to stay close to the humans that you are creating the change for. And if I think about retail, you know, if we just if we assumed that shops reopen in November, if we said, you know, the world reopens, as a retailer, you really don't know whether your client base are going to rush back to bricks and mortar because they can't wait for a human experience, or whether they're going to say, I'm never getting on the tube again, I want to buy everything online. So when you are trying to transform your business digitally, with that level of uncertainty, you have no choice but to refine the art of listening and empathetic leadership, is my view. And the people who will be successful are the people who get that really quickly and invest in leaders who can do it.
So there's that mix there that you're talking about, Tracey, where there's using technology to make sure it supports it, but actually the leadership role and making sure that we're ready to respond fast to what's happening. And of course, you know, you're talking about retail in the UK. I, for one, am ready to get back into the shops. Honestly, you know, I'd like to spend less time on Amazon Prime and have that experience, but of course, we just don't know. Now, Mitten, you talked a little bit about retail for you, and it's a different experience in the Middle East at the moment. where's the revolution for you? What do you think you want to see, or you think's changing?
I mean, Sophie, I mean, if you see where we are sitting now versus where we were probably pre-COVID last year, things were very different, right? When you talk about today, and especially the Middle East, it's very interesting how the transformation, probably, or I think let's just call it adoption of this new e-com era has started. I mean, we were going through some of the questions that we've got at the voice center, and you'd be surprised that there've been calls around, how do I shop? What's a cart, right? So, and it was interesting all the way throughout through the lockdown, how we tried to sort of then come closer to the customer, understand what is it that was really being an irritant in their life, right? And then we were creating comms and interventions that could help them. I think for us really, as of course the points that both the ladies made, I feel that there is a need for us to really simplify it at the same time. I think what's really bothering retailers are the fact that we've been used to very simple business fundamentals, right? And this entire customer space as marketeers, the amount of challenges that the last few months has thrown to us, it has to an extent brought in a ton of complexities, right? I would try, and that's something that I'm trying with my team as well as with leadership, is to step back as much as possible and see that holistic picture of, are we moving as a team shoulder to shoulder in the right direction that meets the customer's expectation? I mean, and then of course, it is linked to a lot of other marketing tools that we use, whether, this is, being empathetic as not just as a leader, but also as a business, given what's happening around the society, the environment, being purpose-led at the core of it, and etc. So I think for me, one big revolution would be to simplify, the complexities that we have around us, and then, beautifully underpin it with the right sort of strategies and toolkits that is needed to cater to the customer.
And so interesting that both you and Tracey use that word holistic, and that piece for us all of making sure we're continuing to take a step back and look at everything properly. I talked to someone the other day about what's happened in every part of the world across the last year. We had that, adrenaline sprint when COVID first hit, and the novelty of it all, and everyone rushing to it. And then we realized it was a marathon, and we had to pace ourselves. And now it's an ultra marathon. So, keeping the resilience up, but also making sure that as marketers, we're not just responding fast, which is what we have to, but thinking more holistically about how we're approaching things and making sure that thinking is going on. And Wendy, is that something for you in Salesforce? And what are you thinking about it from a revolutionary point of view, or do you think there's change that needs to happen?
Always thinking about revolution, Sophie, but I think, look, just to add on to a couple of the discussions we've heard so far, and to give a flavour of Southeast Asia. So again, Asia was one of the first regions to be hit by COVID. So I've personally been working from home for over a year now. I'm loving it, by the way. But I think it's really interesting when you look at some of the research that's been done in our region. So we have a lot of Southeast Asia markets that are very cash-based. So if you can imagine the rapid transformation that needed to occur in entire, country communities to enable their economy to keep ticking over. And so there's been a real adoption of stay-at-home habits, and also quite a lot of conservatism as well as optimism in our region. So some of the stats, 70% of people in Southeast Asia have increased their at-home habits and are 1.5 times more likely than those in the US to maintain those habits after everything reopens. Another amazing stat which blows my mind personally is that 84% of consumers in our region have tried new apps. In some cases, entire generations that never used a mobile or a mobile app before have had to learn. So, it's a fascinating region to be based in, just full stop, but I think some of the rapid transformation over the last 12 months has been extraordinary. So I'm going to talk about three main points for my revolution. First is focusing on using our DNA as marketers. The second is using empathy internally and externally. And then the third is really to continue to improve the diversity we input into our innovation efforts. So let me talk to these three. I'll caveat by saying personally, I've never found a time where marketing has not been important, but as marketers, there is absolutely no doubt that we'll continue to perform a critical role over this next 12 months. You know, I think a lot of us are already leading the growth engines for our respective organisations. And as I said, you know, Asia was one of the first hit with COVID. We saw our customer engagement and our marketing landscape completely shift. And whilst we're in recovery mode, definitely, what we're planning and executing still continues to evolve almost daily. And I think a lot of the businesses across our region are at different stages. You know, they're either stabilising or reopening and growing, all with a sense of optimism. But I think it's more important than ever right now for marketers in our region to be really in tune with their current environment, especially for someone, you know, such in my role where we're across multiple, vastly different markets. I think, you know, as we really continue to sort of navigate what we can only still describe as uncharted territory, right? It's still quite unpredictable what the next 12 months is going to be. I think it's such an opportune time for us to embrace innovation and experimentation and agility and all with empathy at their core. And so the piece around our DNA as marketers, you know, our DNA as great marketers really does enable us to contribute in such a wide range of aspects to all of our brands and our communities. And so I think my New Year's revolution is all about continuing to improve on that and improve on the diversity of thought that we engage to innovate and plan and develop our communications. And more than ever, as I said, ensuring that empathy plays a huge role in that. You know, we've been using a phrase within my team at Salesforce where we want more than ever right now to be personal, not just personalised. And I really love that because I think it echoes the sentiment that we're trying to achieve, because we want our customers to feel like we care. We want them to feel like we take a genuine interest in what's going on for them, because we absolutely do. And I think if more brands globally took a pause sometimes and reflected on just that thought alone, we would find a lot more empathetic approaches out in market. You know, I've always been a believer that marketing and advertising can, you know, change the world, but it can definitely have a positive impact on society, and that's something that really guides me. And it's just one of the many reasons I'm really excited about the next 12 months. I see 2020 as having been a huge gift to all of us as marketers. It's accelerated beyond a doubt our own professional development. And I think many of us have emerged as not just with more empathy, but as much better marketers.
That's a gloriously positive perspective, Wendy, and really, I mean, fantastic to hear. But what I think is interesting there is you've talked about, you know, what marketers have taken out of the last few months and how we're emerging and what we can get out of it, but also what we can give. So you, of course, talk about the impact we can have on society. But as Nick's pointed out in the chat, that expression, you know, marketing is the growth engine for business. Our economies need great marketers to step up and make a difference now. And, you know, fascinating stat that 84%, you know, customers out there is change happening. We have to ride the waves of the change that is happening around us and make the most of it. But I thought you made a few points there about this whole new ways of working internally as well. And Angela, I want to come back to you, because we've touched on this, people working from anywhere and changes happening to ensure that businesses thrive. Talk to me a little bit about, you know, what you've been doing to, you know, rethink about how you thrive as an organisation in these changing times.
Yeah, I mean, as an early stage startup, I mean, we haven't launched yet. So, you know, we need to get that growth engine and put that in place. Hopefully, you know, not hopefully, we will this year. But just in ensuring that we thrive as a business itself. I mean, we've tripled in size since I came on board in November of 2019. We'll double in size this year, and then continue basically that growth rate through the next 5 years, if not more. Number one is just understanding what everyone needs. And I think that's like, so to everyone's, I think there's like the thread that's been coming through this is all around empathetic leadership, or even servant leadership. And it's about understanding what we need to do and thrive, and hearing when people have challenges and trying to adjust those challenges upfront and quickly so that they get work through, and we can move forward, whether it be something that's happening on a personal front and they need more time given back to them, or if it's professional, what can we do to break down those barriers? And I, for one, I mean, my door's always open. I guess I'm blessed that I have an office, and I'm in an office right now. And you know, we're abiding by all the guidelines and being very sensible, and you know, health and safety first, as the British would like to say, or like to say. But you know, we've been back in since June, but that doesn't work for everyone. And we've been very sympathetic to that, and ensured that when people were ready, they were ready, and if they're not ready, then they don't come, right? But our doors are open, and so I think that's like part of it. And maybe I did or didn't answer fully your question, but
Well, no,
that's pretty much how we're like dealing with just all the issues that are at hand.
Yeah, no, I'm just distracted by the fact that I feel envy that you're in an office, because it's interesting, the different parts of the world. And I know that those of us in
There's
London,
not many of us that are doing that. You know, New York City is still pretty shut down.
but who would have thought that actually that would be something that we would be going, oh, actually that would be quite nice.
I didn't think that was going to be so nice, but then once I started coming in, I was like, oh yes, every day. I'm good with that.
And you've touched there on just, you know, the different approaches for all of you and what we need to put at the heart of the agenda. I want to go back to this listening point. So Tracey, for you, you know, is that a choice that we should be making as companies right now, to put listening at the heart of our agenda, and how do we do that?
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't think it's a choice, right? I think it's a necessity. And it should have been hygiene for us all anyway, and now it's, you know, the circumstances of making sure it has to be hygiene. So that's my position on it. I don't think it's a choice. I think it's an absolute necessity. I spoke a little bit earlier about, you know, some people are going down the tool route and using tools to help them, but I think for me as well, for marketers, there's a superpower, right? And that's interpretation. And as marketers are so used to interpreting data, stuff they see, behaviors into actionable insights and into things you can do something with. And so I think that it is absolutely the time for marketers to step up and to do that inside their businesses, not only with customers, because if you're going to transform, that idea that your transformation is design-led comes from really interpreting those insights. So I'm seeing much more joining up across inside of businesses with marketing, and having marketers influencing the design of product, the design of system, the design of services. And I think that's really important. And somebody asked in the chat about, you know, how do we harness soft power? And I think that's one of the key ways, is to really demonstrate how, as a marketeer, you have that sense of agility and how quickly you can interpret what you're seeing, and you can start to predict. And I think they're some of the superpowers that we'll see in transformation, but it all comes from listening, and it all comes from an empathetic mindset, which says that every time you make change, it's design-led.
Yeah, as Pawan just said, that's a great answer. And I'm struck there by that idea that to transform, we need to translate what's happening, and the marketeers in business are the ones that join up the different departments and link the customer to what's happening in the business. It's a great responsibility for transformation and innovation. And Wendy, you've talked a little bit there about how innovation and change is happening. How do we make sure that we hold on to that newfound mindset of innovation and agility, you know, that we've seen? How do we make sure that as things evolve and hopefully change again and get better, that we don't lose that?
I think it's the million-dollar question for so many of us at the moment. You know, I think we've all now seen that change can come from absolutely anywhere and at any time, and dramatically impact us personally and also the way we do business. And so, you know, being innovative and adapting quickly has proven to be the key to surviving in many cases. And the more adaptable and resourceful we can be, and our teams can be, the better the chance of our success, right? But I think to your question, you know, this agility, innovative mindset, and this speed to market that we're seeing in our teams like never before, it's gold, and we really do want to try and maintain it. And I think there's two important aspects to that. Firstly, reskilling is now critical in many marketing teams, particularly increasing digital skills more broadly. And the second is really carving out time for our team to deal with the unexpected and just think as marketers. You know, I think, again, going back to our DNA, our curiosity and our willingness to study consumer behaviour, particularly in times of crisis, you know, and then understanding how to influence and potentially change that behaviour is more valuable right now than ever to our businesses. And it really does give us the ability to steer the ship somewhat as our businesses recover, and again, to provide that growth engine capacity. So I think ensuring your teams have opportunities to learn new skills, to experiment, to innovate, and kind of giving them a no playbook environment, I would call it, so that everybody has an opportunity to experiment and contribute. I think that is really important as well. I think there's definitely also been a transition to progress over perfection. And I'm sure many of us have come to realise the scale of what is achievable with the resources in our teams that we already have. You know, sometimes I'm sure witnessing, you know, those real and empathetic stories that have just been thrown together super quickly, often just as effective as the ones we spent months polishing, you know, in production. And I think that's really key as well. As I said earlier, I believe the pandemic has definitely helped shape us into better and more efficient marketers. And most of us will recognise that our team's ability now to relate to and empathise with our consumers, to provide accessibility and execute authentic content has absolutely accelerated. And this skill will continue to play a significant part as we, you know, move forward in the next 12 months. And so I think as leaders, we just have to continue to inspire. We have to inspire and encourage our teams and lead with empathy, which has already been discussed a little already, right? And just so we can continue to foster this continuation of innovation and agility, because it's just so important.
Yeah, so thinking therefore for all of us about how we maintain that agility ability and the pace. So that point there about making sure our teams and all of us are continuing to keep learning, to keep up. Everything's changing so fast. It's one of the things that overwhelms some people as marketers, and keep learning, you know, and a plug there for more of the things we're doing in the Marketing Society to help you do well and develop. There's some great acceleration programs out there. Marketing Leadership Masterclass, which is just about to take place, I would strongly recommend as a really agile and interactive way to keep learning. So to keep learning, to, of course, you know, the golden mantra of anybody who looks at agility full stop, which is momentum comes from progress over perfection, you know, done is better than perfect, iterate and evolve, etc., etc. It's been there in technology. It's certainly there now in marketing leadership, but it does require a mindset change. And we had an interesting conversation the other day with a group of people working at a senior level in financial services, where they talked about one of the blockers for not getting to where they wanted to be in terms of transformation was actually the fear in some of their marketers and their teams that they needed to be more digital and they needed to change, and that's actually quite nerve-wracking. So how do we as leaders with empathy bring everybody on board to understand that we don't need to know everything straight away, and we can learn and continue together, to give us that pace and to keep inspiring people? I mean, that's a leadership question. And I want to turn from the question of pace now, linked to this point about inspiration, to something you touched on earlier, Mitan, which is the golden word that is so talked about, so confusing, so important, which is the role of purpose in all of this. Now, you referenced it a little bit, purpose-led marketing. What does that mean for you, Mitan, and what would you say to everybody?
Again, a very heavy word, yeah, and difficult to sort of translate. But I think, you know, if you see what the world has gone through, and I think purpose-led marketing is not new to us. It's probably what the COVID era has probably expedited that entire journey for a lot of us as marketers and brands. To me, it is a very strategic sort of a platform, you know, vis-a-vis, you know, if you look at cause marketing, which, you know, we're all used to, which is a little more sort of tactical in nature, that you do a campaign, you know, donate some millions and, you know, move on with it. I think for me, purpose is far more embedded in our DNAs. It has to be embedded in the organization's DNA. And I mean, the touch points go beyond just marketing. While when you refer to the purpose-led marketing side of it, it's really to do with the brand and how we communicate the essence of the brand to our customers and our stakeholders. But for me, purpose first has to start at the top and then sort of percolate across the organization. And it's all about creating shared value for everybody who's linked to that entire brand on the ecosystem, right? So be it our employees, which, there's some great points that Tracey and Wendy made earlier. Plus, I mean, you look at your suppliers. I mean, the relationships that you probably need to make or probably build with them now needs to be stronger than ever before, because they want to be up close working with you. They want to build a relationship, and with COVID, you see all these stakeholders trying to come closer to the brand, Now, with empathy and the right probably level of leadership that some of us can demonstrate, I think this is where purpose binds them all together. And when you specifically look at purpose-led marketing, then that's I think that's a piece where you need to bring the strength of the brand. You need to define why you're in the business first. So it goes back to Simon Sinek. You define why you're in the business, and then make sure that you build a beautiful purpose-led thinking that's communicated to the customer. In some cases, you can co-create that story with the customer as well. Like, I mean, look at what Tom's does, or what Webby Parker has done. And I was just recently seeing some of the recent stats from Unilever, where they said that I think 28 of their entire brand portfolios, 28 brands within their portfolio are now giving them close to about 70% of the entire revenue, right? And they believe that in the next few years, the entire portfolio would be purpose-led. So that's a big statement coming from one of the giants. So I don't think as a marketing community, we no longer need a validation whether this works or doesn't work. I think all that we have to do is take that little bit of that leap of faith, understand, listen to the customer. We made those points, and then drive something at the core of the business that we believe in, very strongly, and have no doubts that customers who now, especially the millennials who want to be part of this new era of brands and marketing, they want to be very, very close to you. They want you to be the change driver. So I think a huge responsibility, and therefore the need to sort of really propagate and be, as marketers, be the ambassador of this program within the organization.
Yeah, fantastic. No, I mean, it's a huge topic, and so many interesting points in there that I know we could have a whole separate discussion on, and I'm sure we will in future sessions. But I'm struck there by the sort of an intellectual challenge with anybody when it comes to defining the purpose of an organization, the aspirational reason for being, and making sure that we connect up inside and out, that's done. So there's a challenge for lots of people. I know that a few of our members are talking to us at the moment about what they're going through. They've gone through that stage of getting everybody on board and getting all the stakeholders to agree the right language, and they're there with their purpose, and now they need to make sure they put it into practice, which is a whole other challenge, and put it at the core of what's happening. So I definitely think we should continue to discuss that and share it as marketeers. Tell us ideas, solutions.
What's also important is this is not a fluffy word, right? I mean, we know how businesses operate, and within the business, it's not easy to always communicate and get people to vote for it. So I think, as I said, I think it's a huge responsibility that we as marketeers have. I think more than anybody else in the business.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's not a fluffy word. It has to be linked to making sure we are developing businesses that will thrive and grow. But actually, when the purpose can be articulated properly, it can do what Wendy said is needed, which is that we do need to inspire. We do need to connect into people and give them a sense of direction and a reason to be closer to us. You talked a little bit there, in a non-fluffy way, but in an important way, about feelings there, Mitten. And I know, Angela, you may be on a completely different part of the journey with a startup and thinking about purpose, but I know you've been thinking not just about customers' needs, but their feelings and views. How's that work for you, just in enlarging that point about empathy? How are you looking at what your customers need and need and how they're feeling.
Right. I mean, I think when all of us have said the similar things, right? And you know, Tracey and Wendy said it really eloquently around just, you know, taking those actions and being that change, and Mitten talking about purpose. That was very important for me at the beginning when I came in to help define that, because we were a startup and we were brand new, right? And that took months of doing, even at that time, a small team, but everyone was involved and everyone's voice was heard and taken into an account. And, you know, it took time to shape what we want, you know, where we see our vision, where we see our going, and what kind of message we want to put out in the marketplace when we're ready to put that out, because we're still in stealth mode. That was not an easy journey, I have to say, but I think it was well worth it. It's nice to have early on a stake in the ground, and especially as a fintech startup, even having marketing as one of the first employees is quite odd. And this normally it's outsourced, it's a freelancer, it's part of a consortium, what have you. But to think that they needed that first as one of the first hires before they even brought in a CTO, before they brought in other C-suite, right? So yeah, I feel very blessed in that I came in very early and was able to have that impact. So I think that just, you know, ensuring that, to go back to quite echo that, I see a comment about brave, you know, like, yeah, just having that voice pushing forward that message. Our customers, because we don't have customers yet, but the, you know, potential customers out there, we are always doing design-led thinking and working closely. I have someone that's working really closely and iterating and doing UX and listening and interviewing and making changes, and really trying to perfect. But so I should say perfect with always change, right? So you're not, you know, it's an 80-20 rule, if you even get 80, right? So you know, I lead with that a lot with our leadership team, and saying that we're not going to get it right, but we're going to get it near, right? And if we listen to and just design what we think is good versus what we know our market would want and are telling us they want, then we'll be better off, because that's what we inherited at first, right? It was, looks good. No, it doesn't. Maybe not. Let's find out. And so that we've been iterating on that. And I think that, you know, just making sure that you push that agenda and not just assume you know everything.
Yeah,
Important.
Definitely the not knowing everything is a vulnerability piece. You talked a bit there about patience and you know, the bits where we need to slow down, and of course we've talked a lot about the pace that's thrust on us. Tracey, you're dealing with all kinds of different brands, you know, mainly in the UK, I think, at the moment. What are you seeing in terms of what they're asking you to help them with at the moment?
So we're at this really interesting point, I think, and it kind of goes to some of the conversation we've heard already, which is when in the UK, when the lockdown first happened, we all, you know, we all were sent home from work, we were working remotely, all of that kind of thing. This hero mode kicked in, right? It was like being in the middle of a disaster movie. Everybody pitched in and everyone was determined to do whatever was needed. That brought pace, but it also brought a coming together of wills. So we saw decisions being made really quickly. Now, you can't sustain that for forever, but what a lot of our clients are saying to us now is, how do I try and hang on to the ability I had when we were in disaster mode for decisions to be made more quickly, for us to just be more agile, but do that in a way that is sustainable and becomes a way of operating rather than in emergency mode. So we're helping some organizations with that. One of the big areas that we see people are using as an anchor for transformation is digital platforms. So people are looking and saying, actually, this isn't the time to be doing lots and lots of building stuff ourselves, right? This is where we go to platforms who have already invested huge amounts in getting the basis of that platform ready, and we look at the art of designing for platforms. How do we get what we want out of platforms? We're seeing a lot of that. And then the other thing that we're starting to see a lot of as well is how do you properly harness your customers or your employees as designers? So if I could, if I had a magic wand, what would I love to see? Much more kind of crowdsourcing of design for organizations, big organizations, the braveness to say, you're my customer and you've been a customer of my brand for 20 years. You design the next thing we want to put in the market. Imagine how that would feel to really trust the people who trust you as a brand in helping to design the evolution of what you wanted to do next.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. And Mitten, you talked earlier about co-creating, and if we have to look for the accelerators, right? And some of those things that will help us, the shortcuts are working with existing platforms, things that have been done already, and the other are just bringing in the brains of other people and people who are closer to it. It's a very interesting area. I'm just going to try something with you all, because as we've just seen from a couple of comments coming in through people listening, all the panelists are very good at articulating their thinking. Now, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a challenge, because some of you I know are at the end of a long day, Wendy, and maybe more awake than other. Liesel's put a question on chat, which I thought I might send out as a challenge. I don't know if you're fully dressed, Liesel, and if you want to come on and set the challenge for the panelists. She's asking for real revolution. Are you there, Liesel? Do you want to just pop up and say hi? She is brilliant. There she is. Hello. And she's there. Look, she's fully dressed. Brilliant. It's always a risk when you ask people from the audience to join, because you don't know if they're listening in their pajamas or where they are. Liesel, just give us a little bit of feedback to the panelists and a challenge perhaps to a couple of them.
Yeah, I mean, the panelists have been fantastic, and if I were, I think it sounds like they've got a really good grasp on the immediate changes that need to be made, but some of them are driven by circumstance rather than revolution per se, and others are more about expanding the role of marketing, which is something we're always looking to do in the Marketing Society anyway, and making sure that the marketing function is driving the organization to be customer focused and to listen, as everyone has said. I'm really interested in revolution as an extreme act, though. So if you were to, if you were to reinvent something, we can't always have blank sheets of paper. Really, we're often asked to make incremental change. It's nice sometimes, and I know one of you is in a startup, which is fantastic because you do have that blank sheet of paper. But if you were to have a blank sheet of paper right now, what would you create from scratch? It could be something new, or it could be something that exists, but you would create it differently. Because for me, that's real revolution, is rethinking something from the bottom up, not just tinkering around the edges.
Always a challenge from people. Thank you, Liesel. And perhaps, in the spirit of being the timekeeper for today as well, I'm not only going to challenge our panelists to answer that, but challenge them to answer it in the style of a tweet. So you can only have one thing that you have to look at. Is anybody awake enough to give Tracey?
Yeah, I'll have a go.
Something?
So I would create a brand new shopping brand, which brought together in-person experience and digital experience in a way that we've never seen before.
Love it. Thank you very, very much. Anybody else got a little blank sheet of paper? Wendy, what have you got?
I'm not creating a new product, I'm afraid, but I'm getting on my soapbox about diversity and inclusion, because I think if we could start from scratch, I would demand diversity and inclusion in every single part of the marketing process. I think we've come a long way, and I'm very proud of some of the things that we employ at Salesforce, but we've still got so far to go. And I think it drives resilience, it drives innovation, it drives critical thinking, and the more we can do it, the better. Sorry, slightly longer than a tweet, but I don't tweet.
No, and it's very important, and it's a subject that comes up a lot, and I know our members are interested in finding ways to do that. I mean, we will continue to discuss that as a society as well, to make it as easy as possible for everybody to do it, and we're working in partnership with a committee within WACL to look at how we can help everybody do that in a more easy way. So it's a great one. Thank you.
I mean, I would echo on that. As a startup, I have that impact, and I'm dedicated to that and making sure that the business understands the importance of diversity of thought, diversity of background, and just diversity of gender, race, everything. We just making sure that we are not homogeneous.
Yeah, that cognitive diversity is such an important point when you're anywhere near creation and innovation, to have that in there. But then also the power and influence we have to be representative as well, and to shape what's going out there. Mitten, there was something I could see you thinking around that. Is there something you would add?
I think firstly, a great question from Lizzle. I think if I was given that white paper, I would just say that, you know, every penny that I earn from my business, I'd probably put a similar amount of money to see this world change. And whether it is towards communities, whether the society at large, or even towards environment. I think there's great examples already from many brands who've done this years back. And I think I just want to probably be on their shoes. That's it.
Brilliant. And actually, I mean, we've been thinking a lot about this and the idea of community. I mean, it's come out across the world in the last year. And for us as a society, you know, the clues in our name, that idea that together we can do so much more. And if we can connect up people, so much more positive can come out of it all. So we are running short of time. I'm going to ask each of the panelists, if they are near to their keyboards, and I don't know if they are, to add in one key piece of advice you'd like to leave our audience with today, while I just invite our audience to answer a poll, which I think will pop up in a second, just to give us a little bit of feedback and guidance on what you thought of today. And it'll take 2 seconds, it's super fast, I promise, and don't leave us yet, because I've got some important things to say before you go, but if you wouldn't mind just giving us your feedback, that would be great. As ever, we love hearing from our members, so if there's more that you want to say that there isn't room on this feedback form, come and message me, sophie@marketingsociety.com. Come and get in touch with anyone you know there. We are interested in evolving and iterating and changing, and the revolutions that are out there, so we love to listen. Thank you so much to all our panelists for today. It's honestly, it went so quickly for me because it was so interesting. I really hope the audience have enjoyed it as much. It's going to be a really important year for the world, for marketers, for all of us. And I think there's been so much food for thought here from you revolutionary speakers. Thank you for your time, wisdom, and advice. We'll collate some of the tips and learnings to share with you all.